Good morning, guys. Hopefully, you guys had a great day yesterday. It was really nice to see you all in the Zoom session. I really miss seeing you guys, hearing you guys' voices, and I'm glad that you guys are all doing well and you guys are staying busy. For those of you that have turned in the Earth Day project already, you guys are doing a great job. I told you it wasn't going to take too long. I especially like those of you that actually uploaded videos of you. That was really cool. So I'm still looking forward to seeing all of it. Remember, it's not due until Friday. Another reminder, don't forget that tomorrow, Friday, we are going to have our first live sessions. So make sure that you guys are logging in, 6th grade, 9 o'clock, 7th grade, 10, and 8th grade at 11. So make sure you guys all log in on Friday because Friday is our live class and there will be no video. So it's just going to be strictly a live class. So make sure you guys log in. Also, hopefully you guys got to enjoy the Pokemon movie. If the link didn't work for you, just try it again. And let me know what you guys think of the movie and how it's better than the new one that they put on Netflix. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Anywho, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in today's content. Alrighty, so yesterday we talked about how farming led to the growth of civilizations. This kind of stuff that we learned last year. But just to remind you, yesterday we talked about how in North America, how they were able to start their farming societies, but since it was a little bit warmer over there, they needed to figure out how to use the irrigation systems. And once they started to figure that out, it was totally fine. We talked about Mesoamerica, how the Chavin, they started to build their culture with that and with farming and everything like that. And we talked about how these cultures, they started to share and trade ideas with each other, and because of this they all helped each other and they're all able to figure out how to farm. Remember, some of the most popular crops that they were growing were maize, potatoes, beans, and grains. So that's what kind of started it. One thing that you need to remember is that, once you get farming and once you get food available, then that's when you can start focusing on other things, and that's what these different civilizations did. They figured out how to farm, and then they were able to grow and build their societies. Okay, so let's go ahead and review the questions from yesterday. All right, so number one, how did farming influence settlement patterns in the Americas? So one thing that farming and how it influenced settlement patterns in the America is that farming allowed people to stop following the animal herds and stop being hunters and gatherers, and they allowed them to start settling in one place and to create their civilizations. Number two, how might the Olmec civilization have influenced later civilizations in the Mesoamerica? So the Olmec civilization, the way they were able to influence other civilizations was through trade. Remember, through trade, not only were they trading goods, but they're also trading ideas about buildings, art, science, religion, and they're also probably able to teach all the other groups how they were able to become a civilization, how they were successful. So it was through trade that they were able to spread and influence later civilizations. Number three, how did early people in the southwestern U.S. adapt to farming in the region? So during this part, remember in the southwestern part of the United States, it was really hot and dry. So they had to learn how to choose the best fertile soils, and they also had to use the irrigation system to get water from the rivers to these areas where they can grow the crops. So in Southwest, they chose the soils, they figured out how to use the irrigation system, and that's how they started to grow and farm in their areas. So today, now that we talked about these civilizations starting up, we are going to move into a new section and we're going to start talking about the Mayans. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how the geography affected the Mayan civilization. So today's objective is we're going to be able to explain how geography affected the Mayan civilization. Here we go. So the Maya. A lot of you guys are familiar with the Mayans. Because this civilization is in Mexico, and some of the things that we're going to talk about are in Minecraft, so you guys are very familiar with this. So let's get into it. So building background. Through trade, just like how the Olmecs influence other places, through trade, people get resources unavailable to their own natural environment. The natural environment or geography of Mesoamerica affected how a people called the Mayans live. So remember, environment, resources, it all affects on how we live in our areas. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So geography and how it affected the early Mayans. So the Maya civilization, it developed in Mesoamerica. The early Mayans, they lived in the lowlands of this region beginning around 1000 BC. So they would live kind of like in the jungles where it's kind of flat. The thick forest covered most of the land, as you see in the picture right now. And this is one thing that's really crazy about the Mayan civilization, is that they were right in the Yucatan, right in the jungles. And now, because the trees have grown so big, they are still discovering some of these pyramids and some of the landmarks that they had, because the Mayans were a huge civilization, which we'll talk about later, a little bit later. So the thick forest covered most of the land. So the Mayans had to clear the wooded areas for farmland. So they had to chop down all these trees. But when they chopped down these trees, they used these trees to build their homes and shelters and everything like that. So like early Mesoamericans, the Mayans grew maize and other crops in their farmlands, and that's how they started to settle. Although the thick forest made farming hard, they provided them with a lot of valuable resources. So all the wood they chopped, they used everything. So the forest animals such as the deers and the monkeys were a source of food. And yes, that is true. They did used to eat monkeys, which is kind of weird. I can only imagine that. So in addition, the trees and other plants made great building materials. For example, the Mayans, they used the wooden poles, the vines, along with mud, and they would use these to build their houses. As you see right there, they would use them to build their pyramids. So everything they chopped down, they weren't wasting it, they all used it. So the land, since it was covered with forest, they would chop it down to farm, and then they would go ahead and use all the wood and everything like that to build their houses or build different things. So there's a picture of what the Mayan civilization looks like now, or just some of the ruins that they had. So the early Mayans, they used to live in small villages. Remember, population doesn't really start growing until there's abundance of food. So like all civilizations, they started off small. So they lived in small villages. Eventually, these villages started to trade with one another. And when they started to trade, they started to share ideas and cultures, and things started to grow. One thing they traded cloth, and they also traded this thing called obsidian. And obsidian, you guys may be familiar with it from Minecraft. It's a really strong volcanic rock, and I'll show you a picture of it on the next slide. So they use this obsidian rock, and it came from different parts of Mesoamerica. When they started to trade these items, they started to use them for tools, and they became more advanced. So trade, not only did it help them get things that they weren't used to getting, but it started to help grow the population, because now these ideas, people are getting more resources, they're becoming smarter, so the population started to grow and the villages started to grow. So around 200 AD, the Mayans were able to start building huge cities in the Americas. And a lot of these cities or ruins are still standing to this day. And like I was telling you, a lot of these, since they're built in the jungle and the trees have grown since then, a lot of these landmarks are still hidden, and they're still discovering them now. I think they talked about this on CNN 10 before, but if you're interested, you can always go look up the Mayan civilizations online, and you can see all the ruins or what they've built, and they did build some of the craziest things. And I think if you go to Mexico, you can still walk around and see the ruins from the Mayan civilizations. So this is a picture of the obsidian. You guys probably are familiar through Minecraft, but yeah, it's a volcanic rock, and it was used for spears and for weapons, and it was just the perfect rock that they can cut and make tools with. So today, as a quick review, it was a very short lesson, I know, because we're only talking about the geography. We talked about how the Mayans, they started in Mesoamerica, but they lived in the lowlands. And when they were living, there was a bunch of forests. And what they had to do was they had to chop down the forest to clear the land for farming. But when they used the farming, or when they cleared out the land, they were able to gather very important resources such as wood. They were able to see the animals, the deers, the monkeys, and all the animals in the jungle. And they were able to use all this to help their civilization. When they started to clear the lands, they started off in small villages. When they started to farm, they did farm maize just like all the other cultures. And as soon as they started to get more resources, they started to trade with other civilizations or other villages. When they were able to trade, they got valuable resources such as obsidian, and they also started to share their culture and different ideas with different villages. As the villages started to grow and the population started to grow, they were able to start to build huge cities in the Americas. So the way geography affected their minds is they were in this perfect area of the forest, and they were able to use the geography and the resources to help build their civilization and to help trade and grow as a civilization together with other villages. So for homework, I want you guys to answer these 3 questions. Number 1, what were 2 ways in which the Mayans relied on their physical environment? So how did the Mayans used their surroundings or the geography or physical things around them to help their civilization. Number 2, explain why trade led to the Mayan population growth. So why would trade lead them to population growth? Think of what you get from trade and what you gain from trade. And number 3, how might have the Mayans used the obsidian rock? What would they have used it for? Think about how you use it in Minecraft and think about how they would use it. So that was today's lesson. Nice and short for you today, and it was about the Mayans and how they used their geography. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Don't forget that tomorrow's class is going to be a live class, so make sure you show up to class because there will be no video and everything will be live. So it'll be at 10 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Mayans and a little bit about that. Alright, so see you guys all tomorrow. Hopefully you have a great day.